Wake up, America. It's Drew Breasy. I'm going to do a little something different today. Today is August 28th. It may not be when you're watching it, but this is when I'm recording it, August 28th. And it's a significant date to me because it's what I consider my sobriety date. So August 28th of '08, which was 14 years ago today, I entered into rehab. There's a plus or minus in there somewhere of a day. Because, perhaps I wasn't completely sober when I went in. But I want to share the story of how I got there, the actual day, and where I am now. So I suffered some childhood trauma, and I carried that into a profession that was laden with trauma, being a 911 dispatcher. Then I moved on to being a law enforcement officer, which compounded the issues probably tenfold. So I had a pretty much blackout drinking problem by the time I was 40 years old. I was in a marriage. I was successful by certain measures. And if you worked with me, you probably never detected any major issues. If you were close to me and you worked with me, you knew almost for sport that I was a professional drinker, and I was able to handle a lot of alcohol, but it was because I was trying to bury a lot of pain, and I didn't realize it at the time. And I got pretty good at drinking, unfortunately. So it led me to a pretty bad incident where involving me falling asleep behind the wheel, sitting in a parking lot. And a deputy sheriff knocked on my window, and one thing led to another, and I was given field sobriety exercises, which I passed. There was no arrest made, but just for some administrative purposes, I wasn't working. I wasn't in their car. I was in mine. But for administrative purposes, they wanted to prove a case that I had committed a misdemeanor, so they made me, when I say made me, I'm not saying that bitterly. They requested I volunteer to go down and blow into a breathalyzer for an administrative blow. Now, when I say they requested to do that voluntarily, I'll tell you this. I had two options. I could go down there and blow, or I could do what's considered a refusal for their probable cause. And we're talking about administrative probable cause, for their probable cause theory that I had committed this misdemeanor for a drug and alcohol offense, in which case the punishment was termination. If I refused, the punishment was termination. So I would either be fired, or I would just have to go down there and roll the dice, or take a chance that the breathalyzer wouldn't show anything else, or at least show the cooperation that I did. And I'm glad that I did. I went down there, and the breathalyzer readings were way off. If that were a criminal case, it never would have been filed anyway. But they found, and I say they, the executive and command staff found that I had indeed committed a misdemeanor by driving drunk, even though I pulled into a parking lot and tried to essentially sleep it off. I passed out. So with that, I was suspended from my job that I had worked so hard for and spent my whole life trying to achieve the best for. I was suspended without pay. I sat at home for, we're talking triple digit calendar days, like 100, 101, something like that, calendar days, not knowing if they were going to fire me or what they were going to do. And the end result was that they demoted me from the rank of corporal back down to the rank of deputy, and I ended up on the midnight shift with the other deputies that potentially I used to supervise. So it was a very humbling experience, to say the least. And that was 2006-ish. Just for a frame of reference, it still took me like a year or a year and a half to realize that I'm not going to beat this drinking problem, because that issue, the internal affairs issue, compounded the drinking issue a little bit. So it it added to it. But there came a point where I was sitting with my then wife in a bar, and we were, I think, the only two in there actually, and we had a horrible argument. We had another alcohol-fueled argument, and I told her to leave, or she decided to leave, one or the other. I'm quite sure I was being an ass. And I sat there for a minute at that bar, and I thought to myself, I was 40 years old at the time, and I thought to myself, I just don't want the next 40 to go like this. And it was finally time for me to reckon with this issue that I had. And so I called her from where I was. She had made it home, and I called her and I said, just either come get me or I'm just going to get a cab, and I'm checking myself into rehab. And she was floored. She didn't know what to say. It was kind of out of the blue. I actually called a couple friends from the bar that day and said, hey, this is it. I'm going to check into rehab. It's time to fix this. So I tell you that story because it took a lot of strength and courage, even though I was pretty drunk, to decide, hey, it's time for me to go. So they called a cab. There was no Uber maybe back then. And they drove me to a hospital where I was met with my ex-wife, and we went into the emergency room, and I told them, okay, I'm here, and I want to check myself into rehab. And they refused me. They told me no. They said, your insurance is not going to cover here, and what you need to do is go to this other hospital and see if they'll take you, but they probably won't because their beds are full. So here I was waiting kind of for most of my adult life for this moment to turn myself around, to shed the baggage, and I finally take the step forward, and lo and behold, that's what happens. I got told no. So I was sent home, and I called my bosses and I told them what I was doing, that I might need a couple of days off. We prearranged with the other hospital, and they were able to take me within a day or two. That's why I say give or take a day or two, August 28th. So I did. I checked into rehab. I completed their in-house program. I was in intensive outpatient therapy for quite a while after that. I attended meetings and such. And I can proudly say that I've been sober ever since. I've had the good fortune of not having a relapse, though I'm not putting that kind of pressure on myself. I've seen through those meetings and other avenues that, people with 30 years of sobriety sometimes relapse, and it's an unreasonable expectation to put that kind of weight on yourself to be perfect for the rest of your life, and I'm anything but perfect. So the reason I'm sharing with you this information is the following. Like, once I made that decision to get rid of the baggage, to clear up the drinking problem, to start thinking clearly, literally and figuratively, it was as if the weight of the world was lifted off of my shoulders. I was tired of always, my alcohol dominated every thought. So if my ex-wife said, hey, we're going to go to dinner after work, okay, where are we going? So I could figure out what kind of alcohol I was going to get. I'd sit at my desk at work and think, how many beers do I have in the fridge? Do I need to stop on the way home or what? And half the time, by the time I got home, I was probably well on my way to being sloshed. It was a bad problem. And when I say blackout drunk, it was just because I drank myself to sleep every night. I made sure there was an alarm set and just kept drinking and drinking and drinking. And somehow I woke up, showered, and got to work and functioned completely normally. As normal can be when you're in that condition. So if you're thinking maybe you've had a little bit, or maybe you're tired of it, or maybe you're the only thing that I can tell you is this. Nobody in the world could tell me, hey, you need to go to rehab. Or I don't know that an intervention would have helped. It may have. I don't know. I'm kind of stubborn in that sense. And when I was oversatiated, when I was done, I was done. And that's when I checked in. And that's probably, that's one of the things I can attribute for the success I've had in the last 14 years. It was because it was my decision and I was in complete control. And as a matter of fact, that was one of the issues with alcohol. I wasn't in control of anything. And this was an opportunity to take control back. And I did. So where are we at today? Well, we not only, I told you I was demoted as a result of that internal affairs investigation. I worked my ass off after that. I really did feel like I had something to prove. I violated the trust of a lot of people, to include, the sheriff at the time and his chief deputy. And they gave me the chance and brought me back. And I always appreciated that. I feel like they saved my life in doing that for more than one reason. And so I always wanted to make sure that I gave back. And that's part of what you will learn if you go through any type of rehab also, that, you need to give back. So I felt like I needed to give back, and I put in overdrive what I would kind of pour into my job. And I certainly preached doing the right thing. I never hid from what I did wrong that night. I was in the wrong. I drank and I chose to drive. The rest is just like debatable, like Supreme Court kind of, was he detained? Was he not detained? Did he do the right thing by pulling into a driveway and pulling into a parking lot and falling asleep versus being out on the road? All of that is elementary when you consider what could have happened had I drove into a school bus, had I rear-ended an SUV with a family and killed 2 or 3 people, or killed myself. But, those are the things sometimes when you're in the throes of an alcohol problem that you don't think about. You don't think about the other people around you. You don't think about my now ex-wife and what torture I'm putting her through, or how she had to walk around on eggshells, or just the people around you, your family that you isolate from. And I can tell you honestly that it all started with childhood trauma, but it came from the trauma that I experienced on that job, and I didn't deal with it properly. I think if I had dealt with it properly, I think I don't know. Who knows what would have happened? But here we are. So I worked my tail off. I got those stripes back. Then I got another promotion. Then I got promoted back to detective. Then I got another promotion, so I was a supervisor again. Then I got a promotion to sergeant. Then I got a promotion to lieutenant. And next thing you know, I'm running that same comm center that I started in. And then I went back out onto the street for a little bit, and then I retired, and here we are. And I blinked my eyes, and it's been 14 years. And I can't say they've been 14 perfect years, because there were still, what they call in certain circles, there was a lot of stinking thinking. There was a lot of, thinking like an addict, or even thinking like a trauma survivor, like being cynical, or the world's out to get me, or twisting everything into a conspiracy against me. And I'm so glad to have broken free from that. I'm out of that. I'm in control of me, and I'm hoping to share everything to help you get control of yourself, if that's what you need. So this is where we are. I retired, and I became this Drew Breasy character, and I am genuinely put on this earth to help people. I don't believe that. I live that, and I'm here to help you. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. But I just wanted to do this little video, and if you're at this point in the video still with me, Thank you for indulging me. I just kind of wanted to get this off of my chest anyway, but 14 years, I do drink non-alcohol beer, which is a violation in some people's eyes, but like I said, I'm in control, as in, if I wanted to go back to drinking, I could go back to drinking. I have no desire. I just like the taste of a cold beer every once in a while, and that's kind of where that ends. And I know that that's a slippery slope for some people, and I wouldn't recommend it for everybody. I would recommend whatever they tell you in rehab. But I can tell you this. I care about people deeply, and I finally found that in sobriety, when you submit or when you surrender your addiction, and you just come to realize that it's a force that you're probably not going to beat, though you think you can, the weight of the world does come off of your shoulders. You feel 1,000,000 pounds lighter, and taking control of your life is of huge importance. It gives you confidence to be able to make decisions. It gives you confidence to be able to guide other people more clearly. And that's where I am today. So please, if you have any questions about it, about me, I'm pretty transparent. I've got not a whole lot to hide. So, it does me no good hiding it. So fire away if you have any questions. I'm Drew Breasy. It's been 14 great years so far, 14 years and a couple hours, and I'm entitled to my opinion.